Oh, hello fire. You came back.
Welcome to the shop. I'm Jared, and this is Wrench Every Day. Behind me is our 2000 Volkswagen Jetta TDI that Tavarish and I actually picked up last December during the Pimp My Ride series on the Tavarish channel. We've been trying to track one of the manual TDI diesels down, which is not an easy feat here in the United States. They're not a very common car. And then at the end of the day, we ended up buying a 6-speed conversion from the UK, so we could have gone with an automatic. But that's okay, because I believe the wizard is going to end up with this for old Squirtle, and that's going to make him happy. The manual side of it, we're going to keep the engine. Last time along on the Honda Rousey Diesel Limo episodes, we tore the engine, suspension, front end apart on the Accord. We need to do the same thing to the Jetta. The plan is to actually box section the frame rails and the inner sheet metal from the Jetta on the Accord, so we can just use the suspension, brakes, everything from the modern car. Because, believe it or not, I could not find anyone making performance brakes, coilovers, anything for an 85 Honda Accord. I mean, who's not hot rodding their 85 Honda Accord? I guess just me. I'm the only dumb person to do that. So we're gonna get started. Same thing. We're gonna pull the sheet metal, the bumper, the hood, get all of the bodywork off, pick it up, drain the fluids, then we'll start extracting that awesome ALH engine, which we're gonna upgrade with just about everything Dark Side Performance offers for one too, which is gonna be pretty ridiculous. So we're making some progress. Diesels being diesels are always nice and dirty. It doesn't matter where you put the drain pan, it's gonna go wherever the drain pan isn't. So this is actually gonna pull differently than the Honda did in the sense that it won't come out with the subframe. The subframe will stay behind, and we're just going to undo the motor mounts, the axles, the exhaust, and that's ready to drop out, and we're gonna keep the suspension behind. I'm thinking we'll still be able to do the original plan of cutting out sections of the actual unibody frame and basically capping it and overlaying it on top of the Honda frame to give us the locations that we need to. Other things that help are the power steering rack lives with the subframes just like it does here. One thing we'll probably end up doing is this front section will actually just bolt back into the Honda as reinforcement. So we're gonna go ahead, pull the axles, pull the exhaust, then we're gonna drop this engine out the hole and start eyeballing the absolute chaos and ridiculousness that's going to be making an 85 Honda Accord a 2000 Jetta. So underneath here, we have got to remove these 6 Allens. I've already got it done on that side, which it won't focus on. And then remove the downpipe. I'm trying to decide if I just want to cut that or actually undo the bolts up there. It's been off, I believe, at some point, so it should come free. Once that's off, we take the lower dog bone off, come out, set up a stand, and remove 2 motor mounts, and we have a freed motor. What happened there is the socket didn't fully seat because of some rust, and it started to spin. So you come back and tap it with a hammer to make sure it's fully seated, and we got lucky and it came right out there. See if we can go 2 for 2 on those that spun. Alright, so we've got this one set just in so I can lock it with a pry bar. And I'm actually coming in with the vice grips. I'm able to grab hold of the outside and we've got it loose, so not too bad. She'll come right out now and we can break that axle loose. Then we've just got the exhaust. There we go. We are at the point we are pulling motor mount bolts, and we're gonna drop sockets because they're not connected. All right, so it is free. It has moved and wiggled some on us. Moved a lot on us. Maybe that should have been an engine hoist. Oh yeah, that probably should have been the hoist. Well, we're committed to it now. Let's make this work. Keep your fingers out of anywhere dangerous. There, that was exactly how we meant for it to come out. No issues at all. Only a few. So now we can come back in and look. So here's our front subframe mount. The rear actually goes into the body, so that is where we'll just cut that section out and pull the interior, cut the floor, weld that in. So our biggest thing for subframe mounts is the width and where we can stick this. This brace actually just goes as a U. So we can cut all these spot welds and transfer that over. And then for these inner fenders, again, this sheet metal, we can cut a large section of stitching out and find a spot that it'll overlay and patch it into here for our shock mounts. So we're actually looking like we may be in a fairly okay spot. So we're gonna start doing a little bit of measurement to come up with an idea of what we need to do next. We'll get this pulled a little bit further away and clean up the mess and get going on it. So I got a little impatient, as you could see on that time lapse. I was starting to pull measurements, but there was one thing that I couldn't really measure that mattered for the entire project, and that is where these wheels line up in the fenders. I have to center it there, and then we build out from that point. So I just dropped it, went ahead and threw the wheels on it, and tucked it under the limo. And it's not gonna be that bad to actually make work out. So we'll have to transfer the unibody frame pucks there. I'll have to cut a little bit of a notch where it drops down, and then we'll figure out, I may have to drop them a little lower to land there, the factory frame standoffs off the Jetta. I'm definitely gonna go coilovers and a shorter shock body because we're already sticking a little too proud and couldn't close the hood. So once we finally get the subframe fully landed, I'm gonna get a set of coilovers that are a couple inches shorter in shock length, so we're not gonna run into issues on the top side. But once we've got that kind of mocked up, I pulled the measurement from that point to the engine mounts, which is roughly 9 inches, which is that point there. So we'll remove that and we can notch and put the factory Jetta mounts in there and have a lot more room actually in the front of this engine than we did when it was mounted in the Jetta body. So it's kind of moving along pretty quickly. We got to make it work. So I just wanted to get it under there, see how it looks. We've got the Jetta wheels rocking up front, monster gap. But again, it was set there just to see how we're even going to come close to making it work. I'm sure once I square left to right and center everything, we'll have to clearance the inner tubs a little bit as well, so we can get full left to right steering. And even our steering shaft is ending up really close to where it needs to be. I don't know. Maybe Jetta diesels belong in all 85 Honda Accords. It's going remarkably well. I'm not going to say it. I was looking for my spot weld drill bit, couldn't find it, so I'm going to pick one of those up on the way home. And we're going to pick up again tomorrow, where we are going to scuff all of the undercoating off, find the spot welds, drill these loose, get them freed, and then we'll go underneath to the lower mount section, cut that out, then we'll come over to the Honda, clean out the rest of the engine bay, get things mounted, and actually measure, position, set, fabricate, and weld in that subframe mount. So we are going to be fully mounted with the Jetta subframe into a Honda Accord, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. That's going to be later for me, but you're going to see it start happening right about... We're on to the next day. I was not able to get the spot weld cutting bit. Stopped by a couple different stores and they didn't have them, and we're just dealing with the current global situation right now. Hopefully you're staying safe and keeping to yourself. I'm the only one here at Site B, so I'm able to maintain the social distancing that we need to right now. I was also thinking about it and kind of want to change the angle of attack for the subframe swap. We are going to actually come back, rather than just the small section, I'm picking up the plasma torch from Brandon tomorrow, and we're going to cut a much larger section of this out to make it a little easier to graft and have more material to work in. I may end up cutting a much larger chunk out, including the strut tower, but I'm not sure on that yet because that'll be much more difficult to section in and keep the full strength. I'd have to fully L the outside and not have the wraparound design of that forged strut mount. But one thing we will get done today, even though it's just kind of a gloomy, stormy day, we'll come underneath, move some of this stuff so I can show you. This rear point here that the subframe goes to is integrated into the floor. And what we're going to do is just plasma a giant chunk of this out so we can graft that boom right into the Honda. But before I can go plasma torching, I actually need to go and remove the carpet from the inside. Otherwise, there's a high likelihood of fire, and I don't really want to set that on fire. So we got a knife. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to hold the camera, hold the carpet, and a knife. Let's try the unsafe just stab and cut. Let's see. That's kind of working. Maybe. I don't know. There we go. Oh, good sharp. Oop. This carpet, and actually most of this interior, has developed some pretty nasty mold. It unfortunately is not a watertight car. And even though it's been inside here a couple days, it is still just soaking wet. It was quite alarming, just how damp and moldy things were from just sitting at my place for the short while that it was there outside. Oh. So we've got this cleared up, ready for the plasma torch. We're gonna go cut the other side. And again, that carpet, you can just see, you can't see how heavy it is, but you can kind of hear just how it thuds. Not only was this full of water, the driver's side is full of oil. I'm not quite sure what in the interior would leak that much oil, but we did it somewhere, something. We'll come over here to Miss Rousey. Some of the things we'll do is, this is a nice big box section. We don't need this old little piece, so that'll cut out. We'll actually prep and remove these engine mounts. We won't use this dog bone mount, so we'll actually be able to cut that out. These old mounts, some of these stands, we'll get a lot of cool little brackets cleaned up and start prepping it once we get the cool tools for tomorrow. But for now, what do we need to do inside? Well, one, we'll have to move some of this stuff, get a screw gun, and see. Yeah, we're gonna have the same double layers. So, we'll grab the screw gun because we actually need to protect this interior and start taking it apart. So I just found something under the seat of Honda Rousey as I'm kind of pulling the interior back to get ready for the floor modifications, firewall modifications, shifter. As I'm doing that, I found a receipt that we hadn't pulled out from when we first bought her from California. The receipt is for a 2000 Volkswagen Jetta set of front control arms, both sides, out of Riverside, California. So, I don't know, Destiny? Whatever you want to call it. We've got the plasma cutter picked up. That's this little tool buzzing in the background there. Some of you might be wondering, why is it called a plasma cutter and how does it work? So everyone's familiar with the three states of matter, which is solid, liquid, gas. There's actually a fourth state called plasma, and this gets its function and its name by using the fourth state of matter, plasma. It passes, you can use nitrogen, oxygen. We use just normal compressed shop air. It passes it through the small Venturi nozzle like a carburetor, and then it mixes with high current electricity. Once that happens, that air becomes superheated and turns into plasma. So by having that high velocity air, high velocity plasma shooting through, carrying an electrical current, it hits the metal that we have a ground strap connected to, and it conducts and completes an electrical circuit, and it'll then blow that metal clean and clear, cutting the part. Normally you'd want a nice clean tip and clean surface when you're cutting and fabricating super fresh, nice parts. This is something where we're actually cutting apart dirty metal. We have an old tip near the end of its life that's been used for deconstruction, so it's going to get real dirty, smoky. And again, traditionally we'd go through and we would cut most of this undercoating and dirt away. We're not worried about clogging this tip up because if it'll focus, you can see it. Well, maybe not. Maybe you won't get to see it. At any rate, that's a dirty tip. We're not too worried about clogging it with the debris. So it's a really cool tool. I love it because it saves a lot of time. You don't have to worry about cutting discs, blowing apart in your face. There are precautions. Obviously, it's using fire to cut, so you don't want to have too many flammables nearby. You need to keep a close eye, have a fire extinguisher ready, but it's going to make quick work of it. So we're going to set up some cameras and use fire to be productive.
Oh, hello fire. You came back.
Man, who would have thought cutting through the frame of a car was going to fight a little bit? We did get our piece off. So what we're planning to do is we'll actually cut that section out. So when we go to the Honda frame, this will actually just slide over the top of the factory one. We can slide it front to back, position how we want, and we will both stitch weld along the seams, and then we'll drill several holes and plug weld this onto the unibody frame of the Honda, which is going to give us a tremendous amount of adapting strength for that front subframe. So we're going to set up and cut out the rear subframe mounts. Again, these come through the floor, and it's actually just a small plate that stitch welds and spot welds in, but we're going to cut a large section out and keep that. Just again, we may need to have some angle, and by having this extra sheet metal to box already, it'll make it a little easier to fabricate into the floor pan of the Honda. So we'll set up, I'll get another camera going, we'll cut both of these out, just clean up some parts and see where we're at then.
Hooray!
All right, so we got our Flintstones modification done on both sides, as well as a nice big chunk there. The parts are sitting here. So again, this is a double layered metal that will probably end up keeping as much as possible just to maintain full structure and strength as we're patching into the Honda. Again, with these panels, we're going to cut the top section so we can form a nice U and slide them over the frame rails and keep as much strength to hold that cradle in place as possible. And I think this is the end of the road for Jetta Thunberg ever going and driving under her own power. Now it'll be Honda Rousey Thunberg. So that's gonna wrap it up for today's kind of, not quite mega episode, but kind of long. We got this torn down, we got goods taken off, and a lot of stuff ready to go into there, as well as just that awesome stance and motivation mocked up. So, appreciate you hanging out with me. This has been Wrench Every Day. I'm Jared, reminding you to always make questionable choices and to just take what you need. We'll see you.